Good evening, Sleepless Void. Today I want to do a tag. Again, I wasn't tagged, and I don't know if this actually is a tag at all. I just made it up. This is my DNF but TBR tag. So consider yourself tagged if you're watching this. Basically, what that means is I started these books. I didn't finish them, but I have somehow convinced myself that I probably maybe somewhat could, maybe should eventually one day finish them. Right. It's actually quite a stack. These are just my physical copies of books that I have not yet finished. So I will also have to do a separate tag for Kindle books. But this is my stack. Ooh. There we go. It's mostly nonfiction, I think. So what happens is I get like really interested in a subject, I go buy a bunch of books, start reading them, and then I just kind of lose steam. And it's not like a fiction book where I'm like really like entranced by the story and need to know what happens. It's just I finished, for me, reading the book. So I'll explain why per book I didn't finish, I guess, or will finish, maybe, hopefully. So let's get started. Ooh, so this is Energy, a Beginner's Guide. I think there's another one that goes with this. Oh yes, Apocalypse Never by Michael Schellenberger, which this one is actually not that good. I might not finish it after all, but I would feel really bad because I only read a few pages. Anyway, I have a background in renewable energy and wanted to start writing some guides for newbies about renewable energy and alternative energy. So I've been reading up on books, but then all my other projects kind of came ahead of that one, and I still eventually want to do like a blog or some sort of article system for newbies wanting to get into alternative energy. I have it all planned out. I just need to actually write the articles, and that's a lot of work. And I'm excited about it, but I'm more excited about my other hobbies. So this is going to take the back burner for a little while, hopefully just a few more months. I'll keep those books nearby. Speaking of hobbies, I've been writing a book for years about rain. It is a fiction book, but I wanted to know more about rain itself to kind of pull it through the whole book and just give it like a really rich, deep world. And so I picked up Rain, A Natural and Cultural History by Cynthia Barnett, and this is amazing. It is so interesting that it's actually the first book I've ever annotated. Yeah, it's just like little purple dots and highlights and stuff. And, it's just so interesting to me that I'm kind of savoring it, actually, because I feel like if I read the whole thing all at once, I won't pick up all of the information. So I'm just reading like chunks at a time to really absorb as much as possible, as efficiently as possible, I guess. So I've actually been sitting on this one for like 2 years, and I'm more than halfway through, but I might have to go back and reread a bunch of it. It's so fascinating to me. Also, fun fact, I live in Seattle and picked this up in Seattle, and it actually does not rain as much as you think it does here, which is super bummer because I moved here for the rain. It's really just more kind of gray, and you don't get like those like rich thunderstorms. You just get like drizzle most of the year. And you know, coming from the desert, I was really used to just like long periods of heat and then thunderstorms. So I was hoping for more like big raindrops than what we actually get here. But oh well, it's still nice. Next up, we have the Book of Ichigo Ichie by Hector Garcia and Frances Miralles, as well as the Book of Joy by the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu. These are both sort of like self-improvement kind of books, I guess. Not quite self-improvement. It's more like outlook improvement, which is part of the self. I like to read this type of book in general. I did another video about Cozy, Huga, and Luca, and these are the next two in that series, but I am not as interested in them because the culturals, they're just so culturally different from me that it's actually harder for me to get through them, because I mean, this one's Japanese, which is very, actually they're both, yeah, like the Buddhist aspects, Buddhist and Hindu, and they're more accepting of death than I am, if that makes sense. I was raised Catholic, Jewish, semi-Buddhist, so I don't know, I have more trouble facing the idea of death than, like, say, my husband, who is fully Buddhist. And there, you know, there's like an it is what it is mindset to it that I just don't resonate with, and it freaks me out. So I kind of have trouble getting through that kind of book. But I do really want to finish these. I think it would be good for me to finish them, even if it doesn't necessarily resonate with me in that way. Like, it's good for me to know about how other people experience these things. Yeah, let's get an excerpt of this one. So there was like a great quote in here that oh yeah, so there's a Tibetan legend in Ichigo Ichie, which illustrates the concept by this man is at the opening of a mountain and sees paradise on the other side, but knows that it's about to close. And he thinks he has enough time to go tell his family, so he does, and then when he comes back, he doesn't manage to get in. And that's... so it's about, like, taking the moment when you can get it, because it only comes once. And like, what the point that they're trying to make is that you should take whatever moments you can. But for me, I'm like, yeah, go get your family. Why would you leave them behind? I just don't get it. So that I feel is confusing to me. But yeah, the words Ichigo Ichie vaguely mean what we are experiencing right now will never happen again. And I don't know, I guess it's supposed to be analogous to living in the moment, but I feel like it's a little too hardcore for me. And the Book of Joy, I don't know, maybe it's the tone, but I haven't gotten very far into it, actually. But still, TBR, will do it. Promise myself. Next up is The Notebooks of Leonardo da Vinci. So I got into this thing where I was like, oh, I have to be a polymath, because if I don't, my life will be useless. And I need to be just like Da Vinci, and I need to journal. And what do journals look like? So I started bullet journaling and journaling, and I'm like, what do people write about? What do I have to say? And it turns out I don't have very much to say at all. More lately than before. So I am improving, but I thought that if I read the Notebooks of Da Vinci, it would inspire me. And it didn't. So for one, this is actually not my favorite copy. I didn't get a chance to look at it before I ordered it online. It doesn't have any pictures, and I know that's so lame. It's just a translation, and it's interesting, but I really wanted the whole, like, writing and pictures and everything that was going on that he was brain dumping into the journals, to just give me that whole view, rather than like, okay, somebody else has translated it and edited it and like all these things that I don't actually have in my life. I annotated this a little bit. What do I have in here? What does it say? Words which fail to satisfy the ear of the listener always either fatigue or weary him, and you may often see a sign of this when such listeners are frequently yawning. Consequently, when addressing men whose good opinion you desire, either cut short your speech when you see these evident signs of impatience, or else change the subject. For if you take any other course, then in place of the approbation you desire, you will win dislike and ill will. Okay, that's actually, yeah, I tabbed that because it's still so true today. Basically what it's saying is, don't talk people's ears off. You're not going to gain friends by just talking to a bored person who's not listening. You want to engage them, and if they're not engaged and you keep talking, they're just going to start to resent you. And I know that's hard for some people to hear. Well aware. But and even myself too. And that doesn't mean you can never talk about your interests. It just means read the room. Some people will be enthralled by what you have to say, and give your time to those people, or give your energy to the right conversations with each person that you're around. It may not even be that the person is not interested in what you have to say. It's just that they're not in the mood for it. It could be anything. Anyway, he has just so many great quotes like that in here. So I do actually have a few tabs that I will kind of refer back to every now and then. Yeah, I would love to make more tabs in that. And this is not something that I sat down and intended to read fully in one sitting or 1 month even. It's just something that I kind of keep around the house, and anytime I have a spare moment and my brain is actually working, because you have to have a functional brain for these types of books. It's not candy. Then I just pick it up and see what I can learn. Along the same lines is Bullfinch's Mythology, which is this enormous, wonderful tome that goes through like the different ages of fables and myths and legends, and translates them in a way that is more palatable to the female and uneducated soul, or something like that. It's actually directed towards less educated people, women included. This was written, gosh, I don't even know, in the 1800s. Yes. So this was written in the 1800s. So it leaves out things like sex and excessive violence, which when we're talking about Greek gods, it's not actually close to the truth. So it's a little weird, but the reason I picked this book up was actually just to like get in the mood for mythology, for other projects, just to like have reference points, which is also what it's built for, is just to build a basic understanding of mythology that you can then, like when you read about mythology in greater depths or hear about it like referenced in other literature or movies or whatever, then you have an idea of what it actually means, which I think is really awesome. Like, despite the insulting bit, it is really useful. And that's another one that I just keep around the house, pick up and learn something whenever I have the time and brains. And the last one is another one that I just leave around the house, which is the Smoke and Mirrors Short Fictions and Illusions by Neil Gaiman. Yeah, Neil's a fantastic writer. It's not really my style. I've read a lot of his books, but every single one of them I feel are a little too grungy for me, I guess. But they're also very good, so I'll keep reading them. But I do have to be in the mood to read them, which is where this ended up kind of just hanging around the house somewhere, because I don't know, I get in the mood for this sort of thing in October and then not really at all for the rest of the year, because like in October I'm like in the Halloween spooky grungy mood, and then the rest of the year I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm done with that. Like, I want to go into Christmas and then Valentine's and summer, and this just doesn't really fit with that emotionally for me. That makes sense. I'm very much a mood reader and like a whole aesthetic reader. But yeah, I think that's all for right now for physical books. Of course, there's still a bunch that I either couldn't find or are on my Kindle, so maybe I'll do another video if anyone's interested. Let me know what books you have not finished but intend to, and maybe give yourself a deadline down in the comments. I'm not giving myself a deadline for any of these, actually. Oh, well, the energy ones. 2 months, let's say 2 months, so by April I want to finish those 2 books, or completely DNF Apocalypse Never and then finish Energy, because I think I'm not gonna like Apocalypse Never, because I was like reading through reviews and stuff online, and it turns out it's not necessarily accurate. Like it's written from a very biased standpoint, so maybe I'll read it with that in mind. Who knows? Oh yeah, comments, do that. Like and subscribe. Love you much. Ciao.